My name is Marisa Patrick. For those of you that don't know me, I am a third session high school student volunteer here. And this summer I went on a journey to the Mediterranean Ocean, to Rhode Island, and I got to help with some very famous people and learn to be a marine biologist. The reason I'm giving this presentation is because I was given a choice of where I would want to recruit people for next year's expedition. And I thought, well, why not look at people who are already actively interested in marine science? So I chose the aquarium. So what is it? Now, the program that I was in was under this major program known as the Ocean Exploration Trust Program. This is funded by NOAA, the Mystic Aquarium, National Geographic, etc. All these very high and prestigious organizations. The organization I was in is called the Honors Research Program, and I was called an HRP student, and it lasted for about 6 to 8 weeks. The program I was in was a non-profit organization. It was the first year that they'd ever done this, so my group that went, there's 4 of us that were chosen from around the world, and we were the guinea pigs basically to see how this program would work. Who is Bob Ballard? Bob Ballard is the one who decided to create this program. He is one of the main speakers and important people for NOAA and National Geographic. He is recognized by people all over the world. He is the man who discovered the Titanic. He discovered hydrothermal vent systems and more. His mission for the Nautilus Live program that I participated in is about telepresence, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And his inspiration was Captain Nemo. When aboard the boat with him, we don't call him Bob, we don't call him Dr. Ballard, we call him Captain Nemo. Also, the program, I spent 4 weeks studying at the University of Rhode Island Graduate School for Oceanography amongst students who are also interested in marine science and were already taking action at a graduate level. So I was being taught things already at a graduate level in marine science. This is a Nautilus. This is not the Nautilus we were talking about. We're talking about this one. This is Captain Nemo's ship, the Nautilus, and therefore Captain Nemo, Dr. Ballard, named his ship the Nautilus. Okay, so here's a little bit of a general tour of what a regular, what the EV Nautilus, or expedition vessel, looks like. And this goes from other expedition vessels that we looked at. They generally look about the same and have the same structure. So when you first board a ship, when you're finally going on your expedition, you give your passport, and everyone gives their passports to the captain. The captain therefore has all these passports. The use of this is so that when you go through all the different passport controls to reach other seas, etc., it's more efficient for him to just hand them over. Now, because you don't have your universal identification with you, you're given this little ID card. This is your life. If you get off the ship to just go buy something at the store that you dock at, this is what tells them where are you, who you're working for, and why you're in their country. When you're not one of the special chief scientists, etc., you have to bunk with other people, and so you go down to the lowest level of the ship, known as the bunkers, which is actually really nice. You get less seasick. And I spent my few weeks on the Nautilus with 3 other roommates, one of which was my other member that came with me to on the expedition, so the student you saw in the video, Sean, from California. And then there was 2 actual people that worked on the ship, who were the ROV pilots. Up here is a pretty good picture of what it looks like having to climb through all the different levels of the ship. You have to just run through these narrow stairwells, and you have to do it as fast as you can, pretty much, in case of fire, so they always tell you to go as quick as you can, also just not to block people. It's actually pretty tricky, but you get the hang of it. I fell on my butt quite a few times, and it hurt really bad. And because the ship was owned by people, or came from the Grenadines, and actually had a Russian crew, a lot of the signs and directions were kind of labeled pretty weird. So like this one says, before to open porthole, permission from the bridge to be asked, which is kind of abnormal. But it was cool to learn different varieties. Get to know them. Anyway, so here's some pictures of some of the rooms that I participated in. So, well, I didn't participate in the gym. That one was always filled with people. But that's a pretty good example. Most expedition vessels have gyms, and there's a reason for it. It's not just for luxury. For the crewmen who have to work hard in the engineering rooms and etc., and on the engines, etc., they have to be fit and they have to maintain that because they stay at sea for many months at a time. And that goes for all the other chief scientists as well. The data lab over here is where the ROV's data that is updated gets sent directly to here, and I'll explain where it goes from there via Dr. Ballard's idea of telepresence. And here's the wet lab. So once the ROVs are taken up, the data is sent there, but all the samples collected from the deepest depths of the ocean is just carried from the ROV right into the wet lab where we get to work on it. As you can see, that's all the window space you have. So when you bring in giant core samples from the deepest depths of the ocean filled with methane, you get really lightheaded because it stinks really bad. It's a bad deal. And this is your life and salvation. This here is the secret ice cream cellar. Because every expedition vessel has something somewhere for you to maintain sanity. So it gets really hot. It was like 90 degrees to 100 degrees, humid and just bad and horrible. And they kept the ice cream in the stupid trash room. You had to go through the stinkiness and they're like, oh, ice cream. Okay, next. This is the main purpose of the expedition vessel. This is where everything happens. So this is a little tiny, like a cargo freight that's just been plopped on top of the ship and then melted down. And this is actually before they made the Nautilus like the main ship. It could actually be taken, the control band, to different ships, like the Okeanos or NOAA, etc., other ships. Now inside this little tiny thing is where all that big action happens. So this is when you walk through that door, is what you see right away. So over here on the right, we have the specialists that they bring aboard the ship. Now typically they have a couple specialists, but there's only one in the control van at a time. Also, everyone has a headset and you can't talk loudly in there because you can disrupt anyone's, what they're doing, their business. Because if you look here, these people are controlling the ROV pilots, and these are $1 billion like equipment. Each ROV is worth so much money. So yeah, you don't want to mess them up. So the specialist that we had on our shift was a mapping specialist, and all of his information was given to me to help me use our software that me and Sean helped develop. And then there was a chemistry specialist from Harvard, and he brought upon the ship a mass spectrometer that helped us locate methane from hydrothermal vents and bacterial mats, etc., around the mud volcanoes. Now, the purpose of having methane in a region like that in such deep depths is that it could give us an idea of where life could be. And we actually did find new species that we think that haven't confirmed it yet, as well as just life down there that we would never expect to have. So over here in the far corner, you see the navigator of the ship. As Sean explained earlier in the interview that I showed earlier, Sean and I both got to sit down and help navigate the actual Nautilus ship. Like, we got to push the buttons. Roger just sat there and was like, go. Okay. And then these guys here, so this one is the Hercules. I'll explain the ROVs in a second. He is the navigator for basically the bigger ROV that goes down and touches things mainly. And then over here is the Argus navigator. And this person here is like the scout for the ROV down there. Over here we have the educator, who is a teacher from across the world, wherever they want. Like, someone was from Venezuela. This woman here, Noelle Turner, was from Tennessee. And they just bring them aboard the ship and they said, here, sit down right here while everything's happening, and I want you to talk to the live public on the internet. So you can send in questions and she will answer them. Next we have the audio video manager, and then there's all these guys that I just explained earlier. And up here, this back furthermost corner, is the scientist team. So you have the chief scientist from America, you have the chief scientist from Turkey, you have the chief scientist from Turkey, like the country that your boat is in, and then you have a data logger scientist, so like an intern. And on days when the weather is pretty calm, but it's really hot and everyone's really stressed out by the end of the leg, or like the end of the trip, the captain will call out a swim call. And it lasts about 10 minutes, and he's like, get in the water. And you're like, ooh. Now, because we were in the Mediterranean, the water was just pure and clean, and it was just beautiful, clear. However, you didn't want to open your eyes, and you didn't want to take a sip, because we were over mud volcanoes, and the salinity was so high that you'd actually, like, with one sip, you could scorch the back of your throat. And it hurt for like a day or something.